Colored video and photo footage of the advance on Stalingrad, captured by German frontline cameramen, are among the rarest surviving records of that era. Among the few who filmed the war on the Eastern Front in color was combat cinematographer Hans Bastanier. Little is known about him, but some sources credit him with shooting on Agfacolor film stock using an Arriflex camera widely used by German cameramen since the late 1930s. Let us appreciate these rare frames and revisit the chronology of events during the German offensive on Stalingrad. These rare color clips show German soldiers on the outskirts of Stalingrad, cheerful, overconfident. They play cards, pose with their weapons, and leisurely assemble pontoon bridges to cross the river. The enemy appears defeated, the road ahead clear, but this is merely the calm before the most devastating storm. Ahead lies Stalingrad. Across the vast southern steppes, the German offensive strategy was roughly as follows: maximum maneuver, minimal frontal engagement. The Germans deployed their motorized corps to advance swiftly and deeply, avoiding unnecessary battles on the flanks. Before an assault, they always probed enemy defenses. Infantry or motorcycle reconnaissance units moved forward, initiating skirmishes to draw return fire and pinpoint Soviet positions. Then, the Luftwaffe stepped in, with German bombers methodically reducing trenches and Soviet equipment to dust. From the air, the Luftwaffe obliterated anything that could slow the advance. Armored vehicles, railways, river crossings, even supply trains. This allowed Weix's and Hoth's armies to advance almost uninterrupted. Large Red Army formations were bypassed, encircled, and left behind. The open steppe facilitated this: no forests, swamps, or major fortifications. The preferred tactic was to flank enemy positions, strike their rear, and cut off escape routes. Precision strikes with mobile artillery, such as the famed 105mm Leichte Feldhaubitze, 18 howitzers, suppressed Soviet strongpoints before the advance continued. Columns of prisoners trudged across the scorched steppe. Many never reached the camps. They remained there nameless, broken, forgotten, for years. They marched hundreds of kilometers on foot, without water or food. Under guards who barely watched them, there was nowhere to run. Those who fell behind were executed. The weak were left by the roadside. German armored divisions fanned out, rather than advancing along a single axis. Hoth's Panzer Army pushed southeast. Paulus's 6th Army drove straight for Stalingrad, and the 4th Army advanced from the south. This forced the Red Army to split its forces, guessing where the main blow would fall. Contrary to popular myth, Wehrmacht tanks did not charge headlong but were used for rapid breakthroughs into open terrain, especially the Panzer III and Panzer IV, ideally suited for the steppes. What could the Red Army oppose them with in the summer of 1942, bloodied, retreating, having just lost hundreds of thousands at Kharkov? Seemingly nothing. Yet Soviet forces on the approaches to Stalingrad used everything at their disposal to stem the Wehrmacht's advance: surviving tanks and guns from the Kharkov disaster, American Lend-Lease equipment, armored transports, and even some aircraft. By the start of the Battle of Stalingrad in summer 1942, Soviet air losses were catastrophic. By July, over 1,200 aircraft had been lost on the southwestern front alone, many destroyed on the ground in Luftwaffe raids. German air supremacy that summer turned minor rivers on the path to Stalingrad into mere geographical inconveniences rather than defensive lines. While Soviet units retreated in disarray and Red Army air units were frantically redeployed, German engineers calmly assembled pontoon bridges under near resort-like air cover. Rivers like the Seversky Donets, Mayas, Oskol, Eider, and Menich became minor obstacles at best, brief pauses to refuel and rest. At this stage, the Luftwaffe flew up to 3,000 sorties daily in some sectors, completely suppressing any Soviet attempt to disrupt crossings. Artillery and airstrikes demolished defensive positions before Red Army troops could dig in. Despite the open terrain and enemy air dominance, the Red Army constructed layered defenses: trenches, gun emplacements, field airstrips, camouflage, and decoys. Every ravine became a fortress, every hamlet a strong point. Soviet command attempted an elastic defense, not clinging to every inch of ground but delaying the enemy, striking flanks, inflicting losses, and withdrawing to new lines. German troops advanced easily toward the Don and Volga, crossing minor waterways. But as history shows, after these easy crossings, they would soon find themselves trapped in massive encirclements. They did not yet know that crossing the Don, especially near the Kalach Bend, would become a bloodbath. There, the 62nd and 64th Armies awaited them, along with artillery positions camouflaged as barren ground. During the July-August 1942 crossing attempts, the Germans suffered up to 20,000 casualties and lost significant armor. While Wehrmacht infantry marched toward the Volga, far from the front lines, but not from the war factory floors in Sverdlovsk, Chelyabinsk, and Omsk, roared to life. There, they forged the steel of future victory. New T-34 tanks, Su-76 self-propelled guns, La-5 fighters, and Il-2 ground attack aircraft, nicknamed flying tanks. These machines would soon trap the Germans in the Stalingrad cauldron, then crush them at Kursk, where Germany would lose the strategic initiative for good. The USSR was not just retreating, it was simultaneously evacuating hundreds of factories beyond the Urals, producing 3,000 tanks monthly, and mobilizing millions. Over the southern front, not just a storm was gathering, but the battle that would decide the war's course. Here, the fate of strategic resources, armies, and nations hung in the balance. Everything was at stake. Every division, every armored vehicle, every ammunition train rolled toward the Volga. A nation bleeding after Kharkov still managed to rise and regroup. On the 28th of July, 1942, order number 227, not a step back, was issued. This order stemmed not from intimidation, but from existential desperation. There was nowhere left to retreat. Defeat here could have triggered Japan and Turkey entering the war. The Battle of Stalingrad became one of the Second World War's costliest engagements economically. Both sides committed vast resources: armor, aircraft, fuel, ammunition, logistics, and manpower. Germany spent an estimated 3.5 billion Reichsmarks. The USSR, despite its cheaper economy, expended at least $30 billion on tanks, planes, artillery, mobilization, and factory evacuations. By summer 1942, the USSR had already received $2 billion in US Lend-Lease supplies critical for replenishing losses but not decisive in battle. The war's fate was decided on the battlefield. On the 17th of July, 1942, forward elements of the 62nd and 64th Armies clashed with the 6th Army's vanguard near the Chir and Simla rivers. Soviet resistance briefly delayed the Germans, but by the 22nd of July, they breached the main defensive line. The 6th Army, 250,000 strong, backed by 1,200 aircraft, pressed forward. By the 25th of July, the Germans broke through the 62nd Army's right flank, reaching the Don at Golubinsky. Several Soviet divisions were partially encircled. The 64th Army also retreated. The situation grew critical. Reinforcements arrived when Hoth's 4th Panzer Army, diverted from the Caucasus, reached Kotelnikovo by the 2nd of August, intensifying pressure from the southwest. By mid the 6th of August, 2nd Army was pushed beyond the Don, with some units fighting behind enemy lines until the 14th of August. A counterstrike by the 1st Guards Army halted the 6th Army's advance. The German plan for a rapid breakthrough to the Volga had failed. In 3 weeks, the Wehrmacht advanced just 100 kilometers, meeting fierce resistance at the Don Bend. On the 23rd of August, the German 14th Panzer Corps crossed the Don and reached the Volga. The 16th Panzer Division seized Spartanovka, Stalingrad's northern suburb, cutting off the 62nd Army. The siege of the city, lasting over 5 months, had begun.